Fresh Iranian strikes were reported across the Gulf region a day after the U.S. struck Karg Island and threatened Iranian oil facilities.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Kyiv is ready for the next round of peace talks, but is waiting on next moves by the U.S. and Russia.
French voters headed to the polls for the first round of local elections across some 35,000 municipalities. Fresh Iranian strikes were reported across the Gulf region on Sunday morning, a day after the U.S. struck Karg Island, vital to Iran's oil exports, and threatened Iranian oil facilities. Iran's military in turn threatened to attack U.S.-linked oil assets in the region if its oil infrastructure was hit. Iran accused the U.S. of using ports in the United Arab Emirates to launch the strikes, threatening for the first time a neighboring country's non-U.S. assets. The UAE, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia all reported drones and missiles had been launched at their countries on Sunday. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump said he hoped allies would send warships to secure the Strait of Hormuz. Britain, in response, said it was discussing with allies a range of options to secure shipping. At the same time, air raids sounded over Israel and Iran overnight as the two countries continued to trade strikes, while direct clashes between Israel and Hezbollah were reported in Lebanon.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Kyiv is ready for the next round of peace talks, but said that it was up to the U.S. and Russia to decide when and where to meet. The Ukrainian leader said Washington had proposed to meet in the U.S. next week, but that Russia did not want to meet there. Peace talks had been underway in the United Arab Emirates earlier this year, but were put on hold due to the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran. Zelensky feared the escalating conflict in the Middle East could draw attention away from Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And the Ukrainian leader has now also warned that Iran could drain the air defense stockpiles Ukraine depends on to counter Russian attacks. Meanwhile, Russia continues to launch near-daily attacks on Ukraine. Zelensky said that in the past week, Russia struck Ukraine with more than 1,700 drones, over 1,500 aerial bombs, and just under 100 missiles.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, accompanied by his teenage daughter, observed a live-fire test of multiple rocket launch systems, state media reported. Kim watched the strike drill involving 12 600mm caliber ultra-precision rocket launchers off North Korea's east coast on Saturday. South Korea's military said it detected about 10 ballistic missiles fired from North Korea's capital region towards the Eastern Sea. The country's National Security Council called the launches a provocation that violated UN Security Council resolutions that bans any ballistic activities by North Korea. The test coincided with the springtime U.S.-South Korean Freedom Shield training, a computer-simulated command post exercise, which is to run through March 19th. North Korea often reacts to the exercise with its own weapons tests and fiery rhetoric. French voters headed to the polls on Sunday for the first round of local elections. 48.7 million voters are eligible to cast their ballots across some 35,000 municipalities, from small rural villages to major cities. Although largely focused on grassroots concerns, the voting will be a test for parties before next year's presidential election for the successor to President Emmanuel Macron. Voter participation will be one of the key indicators of this local election. Abstention rates will be closely analyzed as a potential sign of democratic fatigue. President Emmanuel Macron's party, Renaissance, continues to struggle to establish a strong local presence across the country. On the far right, the National Rally hopes to make new gains at the local level. In Paris, the race to succeed outgoing Mayor Anne Hidalgo is expected to be particularly tight, with a heated contest between Rachida Dati, candidate of the Conservative Republicans Party, and Emmanuel Grégoire from the Socialist Party.